All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in. We're excited to see everyone here for our 1 o'clock Wednesday session. Our U.S. Hispanic Council has hosted a session at every single PDMI event dating back to the start in 2018. We're very proud and invested in the Hispanic marketing segment and very supportive of it. Our council is 8 to 10 people strong. We'd love to see more people get involved. So if you're interested in joining our U.S. Hispanic Council, please reach out. We'd love to have you. We meet once a month. It's not a huge commitment. You just got to show up to one Zoom a month. That's it. But we have a lot of great conversations. The conversations we've had over the last 6 months have led to this right here. Today's panel, it's part of our year-long process that the Hispanic Council is undertaking that is called From Intimidation to Implementation. And if you follow in our magazine and follow some of our upcoming webinars, you'll kind of see it play out as we try to bring more brands across into the Hispanic space. So thank you for being here. Again, my name's Thomas Hare, Chief Content Officer of the Performance-Driven Marketing Institute. We thank you all for being here. We thank our sponsor, Blue Water, who is the education sponsor. If you've been in a session, you've seen a lot of the videos, but you haven't seen this one.
Familia Ramírez.
Deje el drama para las telenovelas.
Pero ahora no tengo que jugar con dolores. Me pongo Herman y el dolor se va.
So if you have a chance to see Blue Water at table 3, feel free to go upstairs and do that after the session. Again, from Intimidation to Implementation, we put together a wonderful group of panelists representing brands, outlets, agencies. Dan Thompson from PlusOne is here to take you through it. Dan, with no further ado. There you go.
Welcome, everybody. How are you doing? Great. Awesome. We are excited to touch on a topic today, and we are discussing a segment of consumers that make up $4 trillion in buying power and represent 68 million people, which should be really exciting. The first thing I want to do is introduce our panel today, and this is probably the most exciting part because of the pedigree that we have on stage today. So, you want to start down there?
Sure, I'll start. Nice to be here this afternoon, and I appreciate you inviting us, Dan. I am Joyce Rodriguez-Hessemer. I have been in the industry for about over 20 years, I'll say safely, in all aspects, from studios to station groups to reps, and currently I lead the Hispanic marketplace for Warner Brothers Discovery. Glad to be here.
Great to see everybody. My name is Jacklyn Lopez. My history is within the agency world, and a couple years ago our agency was actually acquired by our largest client, and so now I've transitioned over now to the brand side, and I lead Anhelo, which is our Hispanic marketing, our Hispanic Medicare brand, and we do everything in Hispanic, from linear over to our digital.
Good afternoon. What are we, third to last session, day 2? I'm happy everybody is in the room right now, leaning in on this important subject. My name's Daron. I am the head of digital sales for TelevisaUnivision Local Media. We are the largest Spanish language media company on earth. I'm allowed to say that now. We have not made it to the moon yet, but one day. And you know, there's a note that I wanted to add in the intro here. I've been at the company for 14 years, and in those 14 years, the U.S. Hispanic population has never not been the primary growth driver for every category in this room. That was too long of a dramatic pause. I won't do it again, but for every category in this room. So thank you for being here.
Great. Again, I echo Owen's sentiment. Thank you for having us today. I'm Adam Herman. I'm the president of Planet Fitness Division at Zimmerman Advertising. I've been with Zimmerman for 15 years. In my role, I oversee all the planning and buying, and I help with the strategy, analytics, and everything that has to do with Planet Fitness, which is the largest gym and fitness brand in the world. And why I think this is relevant for us, Hispanics are a very important market segment for us. At the local basis, which is what the agency is responsible for. So certain markets like Miami we're in, it's makes up a huge percentage of our audience, and having the ability to target them correctly with the right amount of dollars and the right messaging is paramount to success for us. So happy to talk about that today.
That's awesome. We are excited. You can't get this powerhouse on stage very often. There's a lot of knowledge sitting on the stage right now, and we are excited. I'm Dan Thompson with PlusOne BPO. We're a sales and contact center out of Utah. We're also international. And so let's get right in here. Today, so this is a year-long series that we're going to do on what it actually takes to launch into, to scale into the Hispanic community, into this Hispanic media. And we have experts that have done that, and so we're going to jump right into questions. You guys ready?
No.
Yeah, as ready as we can be.
I told them I'm going to be pretty hard on them today. No, the point is to relieve some of the stress that it takes to cross into different markets, because it's scary, right? And so we have the experts who's going to teach us how to do that today. So, do you feel that media and brands are already reaching this market with their current advertising? And if so, what are they missing?
I could start on this side, and look, we're all going to say, I think, have similar sentiment here. There is a misconception that you were able to reach this audience in a meaningful way in your general market or total market approach. There's a misconception. We are not saying that you're not reaching them. We are not saying that there is some ancillary benefit among US Hispanics and US Spanish speakers in your general market English language campaigns. But our plight here, and Dan just said it in a different way, we're trying to debunk the myths and make this really easily and accessible. Our plight here is to showcase the importance of in language and in culture and connecting with this audience in the most authentic way possible, which can't be done via some of your traditional general market approach.
Another key aspect of everything that Ross was saying is that it's an unduplicated audience. So we did some research that showed that 70% of the audience watching our Hispanic networks are not watching the English side. So that's not a crossover. And yes, you will get them in the general market because the population is pretty massive. But if you want that targeted audience, that connection, you should be reaching out to that Hispanic audience.
And I would add to what Ross was saying, outside of maybe you are reaching some Hispanics, in language and in culture, media tends to resonate better. And as performance marketers, we do see better lift on response conversion when we're speaking to somebody in language, in culture, versus a blanket kind of English language general market ad.
Yeah, and I would add from a location by location basis, such as a Planet Fitness or any other brand that has a location that's in a trade area, the composition of that trade area is different around the country. So you may not be a national brand that has to reach Hispanics, but in any one market or any one trade area, it could be 80, 100% of the audience. So while it's maybe not 100% a case-by-case basis, it certainly leans into that. So if you have a brand or a store or anything that is driving consumers in at a trade area basis, look at the market and say, you know what, Hispanics or any other segment is really important to us. And unless you concentrate that advertising, you're missing out from just sort of a general marketplace.
So missing out. So let's back up a little bit. Who is the Hispanic consumer?
Oh, you've heard the statistics.
Yeah.
65 million, 20% of the US, 4.1 trillion in consumer spending.
And we talked about the relevance for, I said for every industry in this room, it doesn't matter if I know your industry or not, because the statement is a fact. The US Hispanic population is a decade or more younger than general market, a decade or more younger. Think about what that means in terms of the lifetime value of this consumer, right? Think of what that might mean for your brand in a lot of categories, major categories like car buying and home buying and furniture, and all of the things that are involved with starting and raising a family, and before that even, taking care of your own, being taken care of, being a parent. starting your own family, raising your own family, buying a house, etc.
So that's in all markets. What are we getting wrong with this specific market? Is there any highlights, not being intentional, or what are some things that we're getting wrong, not direct intention?
I'll say something.
Okay.
From my perspective, I think it goes back to what I was saying in that, you need to be more tailored when you're speaking, regardless of Hispanic or any other kind of multicultural audience. In order to drive better results, better response, you have to be more tailored and speak in culture, speak in language. Just as if you were trying to speak to mothers, you would speak to them differently than you were speaking to children, right? So I think the first step is really understanding that audience and not doing kind of a blanket approach. I think that's where a lot of brands kind of miss.
Yeah, I would say from a media perspective, it's the context of where people are watching, not just who's watching or listening. Radio, TV, digital, it doesn't matter. It's the context and the content. And we have a couple of providers up here who would probably agree that while you could be talking to them in general market media, it's the relevance, that connection of what people are enjoying, from entertainment to news to sports within that Spanish language view that really makes that difference, I think. So when you put that right message against that consumer base in the right context, it just really amplifies everything.
And Dan, I'll bring that point to life that Adam just made. At TelevisaUnivision, specifically TU, when I say TU, that means TelevisaUnivision, now you know, easier. We call ourselves a cultural engine, right? And we're able to connect brands in a really authentic way in language and culture, aligned with the right influencers, the right personalities, the right content. Cultural alignment means aligning with the most important cultural cues and nuances that matter most to this audience. And there's a lot of them. They're not going to surprise anybody. There are things like family and gathering and food and passion points we're going to talk about, like music and sports, specifically football. These are ways that you could align contextually in the most relevant way to really reach and impact an audience. For any category, for any performance campaign, you need to start with that trust level, that running in the sort of the way that we're outlining here in the right sort of cultural environment is going to be amplified. The trust level is amplified when you reach this audience the right way.
And I'd say with the trust level, and it goes back to what you were saying, that lifetime value, and we see that in real time on Anhelo, just better persistency, better conversion across this customer because they trust this brand that's speaking directly to them, that cares about their passion points, that cares about their family and getting them the right health care.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was just going to ask on that point, what are brands underestimating about the scale of this market?
I think I have two things to say, but I'll choose one of them. Maybe I'll come back to it. One of the things that is a misperception is that the Hispanic audience is largely bilingual, 80% bilingual. However, and you can reach them in the general audience, but when there's a connection, you're going to get that loyalty that lasts a lifetime. And I could give for instance, I grew up in a Puerto Rican household. My parents worked so hard to Americanize us. I always say, yo no puedo hablar bueno, pero yo entiendo casi todo. But I can't even roll my R's. However, the generational aspects of the brand loyalty were still there, not only for my parents, myself, my children. They're all grown and out of the house, but they all left with their jar of Vicks Vapor Rub.
I would say another misconception is the Hispanic market is one. It's all the same. And the reality is people come from all over the world that are Hispanic. I won't even go through all the countries where it could be, from the Caribbean to South America to Mexico to Europe. They're all different. They all have different concentrations around the country. More Puerto Ricans in New York, and more Cubans down in Miami down here, and more Mexicans in Texas and California. So when you think about the the segmentation of just the broadness of Hispanics, you should be tailoring that differently. Obviously the language and the enunciations and the words, right, all that kind of stuff from a messaging perspective, but products they use and the communities they're in and associations and the cultural icons, all are different by market. You shouldn't treat it with one big brush like anything else. You have to sort of dig deep a little more and you see the differences.
Yeah, being intentional, and that was the next position I was going to go, is not being intentional is going to cost a lot of money, right? What is the cost of not being intentional, not on purpose in this market?
I mean, I think it goes down to not necessarily the intentional piece, but you're missing out on the majority of, at some point in the U.S., the multicultural majority is going to take over, right? So you're missing out on growth, you're missing out on extra revenue, and you're also missing out on a connection to a community.
And to reiterate, this is such a loyal and trusting customer base that you would be gaining, or therefore not gaining, if you miss out on this opportunity to lean in and engage. It's a customer that you have for a longer amount of time, again, because the age we talked about, the demographics, the trust factor, and then that trust factor sort of has a halo effect where they're now advocating for you, for your brand, and telling friends and family, and then exponentially that continues to grow your ultimate goals.
You say what you're missing out, say it's 10 or 20% of the audience you're not targeting. Who wouldn't want in this audience to see their sales go up 10 or 20%? Like, I don't know a marketer who wouldn't sign up for that right now, and that's probably an audience that's just ripe for putting a message out in front you're just missing, and maybe you won't get sales at that rate, but you'll get sales, and that's what we're all looking for in marketers.
Yeah, that's huge. That number's big when you're talking into dollars, but it's scary. It's scary to get into a segment. Who's going to walk you through that, right? What were some of the things that you guys had to cross through or come to terms with when going into this market?
I'll just take it from a Planet Fitness perspective. I mean, we have a lot of clients that target this as well, but I would say a couple of things. Number one is you want to make sure from a communications perspective, we can put the message in front of them and hopefully they convert and come to our club, or they come to our landing page or one of our sites. But are we ending the conversation there and it's only in English, for instance, right? So are we continuing that dialogue? Do we have Spanish language members at the club that can sign people up and keep that conversation engagement going? Does someone come to a landing page that's in Spanish and they can actually sign up and become a member there? If the thinking stops at the door, then we probably don't convert entirely. So I think it's a huge train from the very first message to the conversion. You have to be committed to it, and if you're not committed to it, you're probably losing people throughout.
Yeah, I was going to say the same exact thing. I think, what we found on the Anhelo side is the end-to-end experience in culture and language is really, it's intimidating for brands, right? To, whether you're online or driven by a call center, to have to staff Hispanic agents or Spanish language agents, translate your website or transcreate your website. But I think you end up seeing that in a results perspective too, through conversion, through the loyalty. So I think it is an important piece of when you approach this market, having an end-to-end experience that feels in culture, that is in language.
When brands come to you, what concerns do they have, and what do they see that's, surprisingly, that wasn't a concern, but it's such a big hurdle? Is there anything that comes right off the top of your mind?
From a media standpoint, look, this is a new language, right, for a lot of the folks that are coming to us, especially if they don't speak it, and that's totally fine. So understanding how to create an infrastructure or build resources in language if necessary, right? I think Joyce made a great point in the bilingual, or the ability of this audience for the most part, especially on digital platforms, to consume in English, right? The probably overwhelming majority at this point. But just being able to understand how you could facilitate, God forbid the campaign's successful, and we'll make sure it is, how do you actually convert that, right? And I think that is intimidating, to Jacklyn's point, but we try to walk folks through and make it easy. And look, we wouldn't be here if this wasn't highly successful with a ton of major brands down to mom and pop, shops and local markets.
And I think what's intimidating to a lot of the brands is how they should budget this. And is it incremental, or is it what we're saying up here? The theme is it should be intentional. And there needs to be a realization that it's just another segment of the marketing that you're doing. And it should represent that audience, or roughly 20%, let's say, of your budget. And that's intimidating because it doesn't exist right now for a lot of brands. And it, results in having to rethink everything and get a lot of, communication within companies is kind of not as integrated as and easy as we all wish it were, but it really needs to be all integrated in there. You need to be a good voice.
You brought up budget, and so I want to continue with that theme for a minute because it's important. You want to know where your dollars are going and how to allocate those dollars. So when your creatives, can they be Spanish, bilingual, English? Those are some of the questions that is going through right now. How do I even start with a creative?
Well, thanks to our sponsors. But I think it's, you can't just, paint with broad strokes here either. In our case, for Anhelo, we have an older skewing audience. So our creatives are predominantly all in Spanish, right? That's what's resonating with a less acculturated audience, an older skewing, people who might be first generation in the States, right? But that might be different for something that, skews younger, more acculturated. So I think you have to get with the experts in the room, and there's a lot of, partners like Univision that could, kind of walk you in the right direction, but ultimately, you can change your kind of accents there depending on the region where you're going. So you have to tailor it to your target market where you want to grow. So I don't think there's a blanket response that we could give in terms of how you want to approach that. But I'd say, lean on your experts and do it in a way that feels authentic and is tailored to the consumer.
Yeah, when you think about it in terms of it's just a segment, like any other segment, doing advertising, it's all segmented anyway, whether it's by age or by gender or by region. In this case, it's language. Every plan has layers to it, right? There's no one size fits all, or at least there shouldn't be. Each one has a different approach, a different media tactic, hopefully different creative to reach them. And if you think of it in those terms, then the Hispanic population, the Hispanic segment, it's just one that you should reach. And just figure out within your plan that it's as much of an important target as an 18 to 24 or a 55 plus. It's just something you need to do, and because it's going to be meaningful in the outcome of your business. You can model that out and understand exactly how much to spend and all, but if you marginalize it and make it special in terms of its own uniqueness, there's a positive to it, but it's also negative. But you're taking it out of the whole, and if you keep it within a whole, I think the budgets will be there because it's just part of the mix, and it should be part of the mix.
I'm going to go to you on this one. You measure your success by joins, number of members that join your fitness centers.
Right.
What have you done successfully, or what are some pieces that you say in the creative side that represents more joins? Like, oh, that worked really well.
Sure.
And base it on, we used fully Spanish creative or a bilingual, or these are the cultural things that we did.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question because that gets to the heart of performance, and we're in a performance-driven conference, right? So we haven't really talked about that so much against Hispanics per se, but when you think about the advertising, to your point, things that we have control over, you can change the imagery of the ads, the people in the ads, so they could be name the gender or more Hispanic looking, whatever it is that we feel that is going to connect with that person, we can change that out. We can change the machines that they're on. We can change the club environment, right? So there's the imagery. Then there's obviously the language of the advertising. You want it to be in Spanish. But we have the ability to test out headlines and offers and reasons to believe. All those are testable, although I think testing came up in the last session, how important it is, and it certainly is. All these things can be tested and understood, and because if it's a lot of what we do is digital and what we're talking is digital, there's a direct connection that someone clicks through and converts. And so we can see which target audience, which segment, which behavior, which activities that people are doing online. All that thread connects, so we have the holisticness of the ads can all those changing elements to it. We know where the audience is. We know what they're connecting to. Then you just piece it together, and we can say, this is performing better. We need to do more of that.
So one aha moment that you had during this exercise that was surprising. Can you think of one?
Of this exercise? My exercise involving the Planet Fitness.
Putting together your creatives.
So I think
a little tweak on a website or whatever.
Yeah. I think like I said before, having that language in language where someone lands to the page in Spanish is actually super important. I think that's an easy miss. People just say, well, we don't need to have that red thread throughout, and I think people miss that a lot. We do that. I think having offers. I think offers are different. Because Planet Fitness, we have limited amount of things that we do because we sell basically a classic card at $15 and a black card at $25. So we have kind of not too much of variations on our theme, but we can change out how we talk to people, the conversions of what people are doing online, which is really important. I think where we stand out more and more for at least the Planet Fitness, I don't mean to hog the answer, I was just trying to, where we stand out on the Planet Fitness is the targeting of where we place the ads.
I'm gonna pause there because I have another slide for that, but I'm gonna move these same questions over to Jacklyn.
Great. I actually have a surprising aha moment.
I want to hear this.
So we have some spots where really great talent, they're professional talent, and you feel great about the creative, and you're like, this is gonna crush it. We've seen creative with kind of more authentic, not professional actors, and you're like, wow, their delivery is really poor, and you're sitting from this seat and saying, I don't know if this is gonna work. And it's our best working creative when we have real Hispanic seniors in the spots. It doesn't feel polished, but it does speak to a kind of thread of truth for the Hispanic culture, because it's a collectivist culture that relies on recommendations from their community, trust. And so it makes sense when you think of it and kind of zoom out that way. But as a marketer, you're like, oh wow, this spot is not great, and it tends to be our best performing when we have real people in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And I think when you have that, and you have that authenticity and that connection, that is going to build you long-term loyalty, and that's what you're looking for in this growing population.
Yeah,
right?
There's no question. I want to take it just a little bit deeper with you on the brand side. You created even the name is a Spanish name. Can you tell us what that means, how this evolved, and what successes and challenges you've had along the way?
Yeah, I mean, look, so I think going in as a brand, there's like that intimidation, right, that we kind of crafted this whole session around. And we started very simply, right, a translation of an English language ad on some Spanish language media. And the proof was in the pudding. We were killing it, right? There was great response. Our CPAs were looking awesome. And we said, wow, there's really something here in this community. And we're diverting a lot of the budget here. We're seeing the results. How can we be different? How can we differentiate? There's this gap in the market that isn't being addressed, right? So that's where Anhelo came in, and Anhelo means a longing or a wish. And so the whole brand was really crafted down to these kind of pebbles in my typo that you can see here. Down to these pebbles, they're kind of resembling the cobblestone streets of like a colonial town that a lot of, first generation Hispanics are used to seeing. So, all of our imagery, all of our tone is kind of crafted around the family, the music, the food, the gathering. And then what we were saying before, just kind of having that end-to-end experience is something that we saw a gap in the marketplace that needed to be addressed, not only, you know, for our own pockets as a business, but, you know, for the well-being of this consumer, right? Getting people the right answers and the knowledge and the education to the healthcare that they need.
Hold on, I just want to add one thing to that. That's why this session, I like how Jacklyn put it, was crafted. There are still gaps in the marketplace. There are swim lanes for you to find your way, engage, lean in the right way, and here's your case study for success. I mean, on both sides of me.
Yeah. And I love that the intention was there, not only for you know, the revenue purposes, but to really go after and service the audience. Because there's, I want to say 65% of the young Hispanic audience that feels ignored and not being attracted to your brands, that they're just looking for a reason. They're consumers, they're homeowners, they're educated. You want them.
Absolutely. Coming from my perspective, I know there's a lot of other gaps that you've been filling, and the audience is going to experience some of those that we're trying to fix, right? Coming from the contact center side, there's gaps in language or bilingual, or tell me some of those experiences on either side that you've experienced and had to fill on the, you know, the customer experience side.
I mean, back in my agency days, we would talk to clients and say, well, we have 2 agents that speak Spanish. And we're like, guys, you can't create a scalable campaign with that. So I think it goes back to the point that I made that, you know, it has to be a dedicated effort, right? And it has to be something that shows commitment to the community. And you won't regret that because it will drive scale.
Do you dive in deeper into maybe the call center?
Yeah, it's like an end-to-end. I
Right.
think we were talking about that earlier, and how it's so important that you have your Spanish content, you're delivering everything, and then they go to call that 1-800 number, and the person over there is not understanding their questions, and you're going to lose them, and that is
Right.
where the connection is lost. You really need it. I think that's what you were asking,
Yeah,
the
on both
beginning to
sides.
the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the other thing that we should think about is, so part of it's messaging, right? You want to get the right message. Part of it's the creative. Part of it is the audience. But when you think about the full spectrum of what we do, is also the media channels and how we reach consumers. So the Hispanic marketplace, not to generalize, but they tend to be younger, and so the channels might be different. Maybe our plan should be in more paid social and more streaming audio, and we actually can start changing the mix out as well as everything else. So when we do our plans, it's that's that full thinking. It's not just the language and the messaging and so forth. It's how we're reaching them in what environments, and it's actually really important as well.
Yeah, I just popped up the screen that you have that you shared. Can you go through basically your strategy there from Planet Fitness?
Yeah.
I know this tells a bigger, larger story.
Sure. So what you're seeing here is a screenshot of our hyperlocal platform. Hyperlocal is Zimmerman's proprietary data-driven audience planning platform. We created about 12, 13 years ago for the simple reason that what Zimmerman does is we're very retail-based, very location-based. We want to put that right message in front of the right person, the right place at the right time, kind of the holy grail of marketing. And this didn't exist, so we created it ourselves. And what you're seeing here is a view. I believe this is Miami, and it's one of 4,000-something data layers we have. This one is just on the ethnic breakout of Miami. You can see from the green here, that is a heavier Hispanic-based zip code. The red is African American, the yellow is the white or Caucasian market, and the logos there are Planet Fitness locations. So we use this as one of the many tools that we have is to hyper-localize our target of advertising. So if you have a Planet Fitness location, I circled one there in red, that is smack dab in the middle of a heavily dense Hispanic population trade area. Why is that important? Well, that should be the first clue and trigger for us to actually decide that particular club should get an inordinate amount of Hispanic targeted advertising, and a large percentage of the budget should go against that audience. We have other clubs that maybe fall in different demographics. So this is how we use it. And when you think about why Hispanics are important, certainly for Miami, it makes up a huge percentage of the audience. And if you just blanket with a general market message, you're missing out probably 40% of the population in Miami alone. But any one trade area could be 100%. And so if you don't have a dedicated plan against that, you're missing out, not just forget about that Hispanics are not, you're just missing out on people. There are people to drive into a location, regardless who they are. This is how this tool's used, and it makes a big difference.
That's awesome. It's a great tool. I want to go back. So now you see this map, and I want to go back to the budget. And I don't know if we answered this. Do you have incremental dollars on media, or do you shift dollars from your current budget?
I mean, I would say it's incremental, right?
Incremental.
I think it goes back to it being a dedicated effort. I don't think you need to start there, right? I think the point is get started, right? You know, I think where we saw success, just translating and creating a spot, and you start to see, okay, this is working. That's when you make the case then, I need incremental dollars against this. This is how I'm gonna scale. So, you know, I don't think it matters right now, right? If you're not in this market, then whether you pull from this campaign or you're adding incremental dollars doesn't matter. I think it's just getting your foot in the water.
You got to show up. You got to show up. Look at, and we'll help. Look at the size of prize. Look at the audience. Look at the geo. I'll use geo example here because it's a map that Zimmerman's proprietary tool. Look at the size of prize in terms of the audience population and your potential customer base, and let's start there. Let's allocate budget literally based on the number of people, new human beings that you're trying to bring in the door, right? Isn't that a very simplified approach? It's not a one-size-fits-all. I agree it's going to be different for different brands based on objectives, but let's start by looking at what does that audience look like? What is my real potential opportunity? And then can I shift or add budget accordingly?
Yeah, I would just sort of top on what you just said. I think with a view of this particular market, it's not incremental. It's our budget. It's like how we, whether it's 50-50 or whatever the number, it's just, we have to do it, right? It's part of the marketing plan to reach that percentage of the whole DMA. Other markets, it would be an incremental test. Like we have, I'll take Atlanta, for instance. You know, I can pull up Atlanta here. I just have it sort of memorized. It's mostly sort of the yellow for the Caucasian, a big African-American population, the south part of Atlanta, and a little tiny pocket around a couple of clubs that is in green for Hispanic. I wouldn't necessarily buy the entire DMA of Atlanta for Hispanics, but I would for here, and that's something to test, and we did, and we saw great success. So we have a dedicated plus-up plan for just, you know, a certain amount of clubs that are in a, you know, a pocket, if you will, of a certain demographic that we want to reach. In that case, it's incremental. In other cases, it's a huge miss not to be just part of the plan.
Awesome. Can I expect performance and KPIs to be measured the same, or is there some, you know, can I expect to read my report the same, or is there some different performance metrics that you guys are tracking?
So I want to root it in performance. I want to take one step back with, I think, an important note, and then we can sort of follow up there because it's crucial, obviously. And I joke, this is sort of a PSA for anyone in the room. By the way, you may be doing this today, you may be consider doing this tomorrow, whether programmatic, working directly with folks like Joyce and I. You know, TU takes data and representative audiences very similar, right? As anybody should when you're trying to leverage that data to generate the outcomes and the business goals that you're looking for. And very quickly, we commissioned a study essentially of all third-party data sets. All right, if anyone doesn't understand this, we'll leave time for questions at the end, but I think it's worthwhile mentioning. We commissioned a study with all of the third-party data sets to look at essentially their ability to identify US Hispanics. And this was a few years ago. We found that 4 in 10 Hispanics were excluded from third-party data sets. That's where I should have done the dramatic pause. And it led to, thank you, like 70% of impressions not delivered to their intended audience, right? So I start with that. It's staggering. It's also not that surprising if you're in the space, but no measurement or attribution models are going to help you if you're starting on the front end with poor data. Fast forward, and I'll even quicker, to 24, maybe early 25, and we sort of commissioned that same study looking at all the third-party data sets. And unfortunately, as we say it, the delta widened, right, between third-party data sets and the first-party identity solution that we created that I'll just introduce quickly. But it's now 2 out of 3 Hispanics invisible in third-party data sets. So you're not reaching this audience if you are sort of leveraging these third-party data sets that exist, that are vital and important in their own way and should still be onboarded, but first need to be verified and authenticated. So TU built what we call the household graph. It is a first-party identity solution. It essentially has 100% of US Spanish-speaking households mapped, ready for activation, targetable, and that's really important as the starting point because then you have better, really superior data that's gonna lead to better outcomes. And then your attribution and your other performance models, a lot of the tried and true sound strategies that you're all deploying on your campaigns still come into play.
Yeah, good stuff.
That's awesome.
That is super smart. Yeah, I don't know what to add to that. I mean, it's super smart.
Sorry, mic drop.
What do we say after? Thank you. Go ahead.
You just pulled up this slide, and I said 65%. It's 76% of the young Hispanics feel overlooked by brands. In the U.S. consensus, the report showed that, and I hope I'm saying this right, the majority of 17-year-olds and under are Hispanic. And that is just going to continue to grow for the next several decades. So it's an audience that, again, they're older, they're younger, they're generational, they're educated, homeowners, they're having families, and they're growing.
Absolutely. That number, by the way, is massive.
Yeah.
What you just said. We've got a few minutes, and I want to get some questions. I want to go through each one. Where do I start? I'm a new brand. I'm already spending. It's not as scary now because I attended. But where do I start? What do I do in the next 30 days?
Start on this end?
Yeah. Where do you start? So if you're a brand that is not targeting the Hispanic community, many of you probably are, and if you're sitting trying to learn how to do it, I would say work with your agency, work with your analytics team, understand the size of the prize, understand what percentage of your consumer base is Hispanic, understand where they are around the country, how they consume your product. Just get a really firm understanding of who the person is and what they mean to your business. After that, all the other media stuff can sort of fall into place, but you probably need to start with a business sense first and foremost, how important that audience is. Once you understand, then the targeting not becomes simple, but it's certainly the next step, and that's where you can have targeted messaging and targeted plans and test budgets and all that stuff. That's certainly important. And then also think about, you sort of alluded to this as well, is that what's the end goal? Like, what are you trying to accomplish with this? Is it increasing the base of Hispanics against your brand? Is it more sales? Is it greater awareness? Is it loyalty? Understand what your outcome is. So start with the business need, figure out what the outcome has to be at the end, and all the other stuff in the middle is just what advertising does on a day-to-day basis. You can find the right agency for that, but that's how I would say start.
And that's a fundamental, look, I said it, show up, make the decision, show up. It's about progress, not perfection, right? So the intimidation factor is taken out because of the last 45 minutes, hopefully. No intimidation, show up, make progress, learn on the way. Everything that you're doing that's worked, there's no reason that it can't. We just need to change the approach, not change the approach, sort of shift the narrative in terms of storytelling the right way in language and aligning in the most authentic way in the moments that matter to this audience.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say anything different, right? Get grounded in the data. We're all gonna take it back, model it out. What is this gonna do, right? And then have an end goal. And then, you'll put the right people in the right rooms to have the experts, kind of show you the path.
And I'll say starting isn't as complicated as it seems. You're here today. You have a panel of 5 people. You know our names. Get connected with us, because there's so much more input beyond this room that we can help tailor to your specific brands. And I'll end with another dramatic pause, so wait for it. In the next 5 years, the brands that win will not be the ones that test the Hispanic market. They'll be the ones that commit to it.
Ooh, that's beautiful.
No question.
Well said.
Thanks. We have some questions. Thomas has got a mic.
Start here and then
Matt?
You're closer.
Fine. I'm Matt. Nice to meet you guys. I was just curious. That stat, 76% of young Hispanics feel overlooked by brands. I'm on the creative side, not on the media side anymore like I used to be. And just curious, like, do you see from creative resonating with this young Hispanic community to be more of like that high production value content that you're producing with large agencies and some AORs, or do you think about repurposing social and using it as part of your targeting strategy with hyper local and whatnot? So with young Hispanics, just curious what you guys see in that creative.
I hate the word repurpose, but we do a lot of that. But we all do, right? But I think where the evolution should become, and again, that's not just Hispanics, it should be at all markets that we target. We should have dedicated social media that resonates by platform, because TikTok is different than Facebook, it's different, right? So they're all different. But to do it right, I think we've talked about this a number of times, be authentic. Like, make sure the people in the social is the people you're trying to reach, and it's just not taking a TV spot that you repurpose. It should be dedicated, it should be unique, and it should be authentic. And that goes against any segment, but certainly against the young Hispanics that we're talking about. And especially in paid social, because that's where people are spending their time. That's where they're consuming the media. So you should be, if you're going to put $1 down anywhere to get creative right, it's probably in social right now.
And I'll just add, like, as important as creative is, I think this metric, this insight is probably representative of the sentiment before creative is even deployed, right? These are brands that are not reaching out in an authentic way, right? We've all said it in language, whatever that means for the brand, for the objectives, right? For the audience they're reaching. So, this is such an important stat here, because it's the reason there is such a massively open swim lane for so many brands and industries to reach this audience and connect and drive new business.
Yeah, I think it's the before point, right? It's 20% of the U.S. population and less than 10% of media dollars go there.
Right.
It's a big statement. That's right. Next question.
Yes, you get Joe Lyons from Always On Data here. So data question, and data came up obviously a bunch of times here. Do you see trends in terms of, outside of the basics in order to reach the Hispanic audiences, like with blending more signals together? For example, political data and healthcare data, there's a lot of overlap and interest there, or shopping and culture. So are you seeing that becoming more common in how to reach brands, connecting with the audiences and expanding, just reaching the hardcore demographic, but even a broader audience associated with Hispanic?
Is this part of our Bad Bunny conversation?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I'm just wondering. Take it away.
So one of the things with the audience is that's not to be overlooked, is its scale and its speed. We already know how massive it is, but more importantly, its influence on the broader culture of everything. And you look at the Super Bowl, and sports is a big one, because the Hispanic audience is there watching with their family. Everyone's watching with their family. And Bad Bunny, performed this year, but he's not the first. There was Shakira and Jennifer Lopez and Bruno Mars. So we spoke about music being, one of the key connectors to the whole population. And yes, you can reach, and then crossover. Is that what your question was reaching towards?
I'm going to give you a completely different answer than you're probably expecting.
Okay.
So data is fundamental. We've talked about it several times. Think about AI, We haven't used those initials once in this panel, and the last panel was dedicated to that to a great degree. But think about using something that can join multiple data sets together way better than humans can, right? So if you have multiple data sets, AI can piece things together way better than humans can. Not that humans shouldn't be part of the process, but if you have a database of, you mentioned the political aspect of whatever, and you have one about Hispanics, whatever, and you have one about brand consumption, AI can now stitch this together and come up with insights and discovery that we couldn't even think about. And that's going to lead us to those next iterations of what the right ad should be, the right target audience, the right content. And this is a more of a general, universal statement that AI can do that for everybody. But certainly in what you're asking, I think that could be a great solve.
We got time for one more.
One more?
That was weird. That echoed right in my ear, my own voice.
Hey guys, Frank, new guy, crazy guy in the industry. So I'll try to see if I can connect this question correctly. So what I learned yesterday, just in general about brands and what the challenges are, right, is like being able to sell a lifestyle, being able to connect with the audience. You guys mentioned about authenticity, right? Like I'm learning to keep up with my Italian. So being able to be continuously educated, to find brands that like connect with my lifestyle, to essentially like learn and become like a lifetime customer. Like, how are you guys continuously educating, you know, this community to be able to essentially, what's the word I'm looking for, to like increase long-term value, right? Because if the young consumer is like 17 below and you guys are trying to like present your brands, like how important is it to continuously educate them? Because like for your example, right, like with insurance, like education is super important. So it's like insurance, now you go into like financial advising. Like if you're constantly continuously educating, you know, your consumers, like that's going to increase loyalty, it's going to increase authenticity, and it's going to increase relationships. So what are you guys doing for all kinds of demographics to have that continuing education? And also, please let me know if I'm talking out my ass. Sorry.
I think you answered a lot of your own questions, but I'm going to let these guys answer because it is important and you're doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we see that that's a deep need for the Hispanic community. A lot of insurance is hard for anyone to navigate, and when you're not grandfathered in through like, you know, your parents and having to kind of deal with those complexities, there's a lot of education that needs to happen. You know, it's top down. So from our marketing materials, from our website, from the kind of ancillary materials that we publish, all the way down to when they get on the phone with an agent. You know, our agents will spend, unfortunately hours with our clients and our customers and our callers to just explain the complexities of a very complex industry. So I think, you know, it has to be laced through the process and a continuous effort. So, you know, you did answer your question in that, right? But I think ultimately, you know, it has to be throughout all of your materials, right, to really enrich the customer experience and the consumer experience.
Yeah. If I just add one thing.
Yeah.
So if you're new to the industry, which is great, and thank you for being here for that, just to learn. But you think about how classical marketing works. You make someone aware of something, you make them want to think about you to buy, and then you have to convert. I think where a lot of brand marketers, regardless of Hispanic target or not, miss the mark is in that consideration. It's that building the reason to believe, that education, that the why about it. So we get the name out there and we do the last click really well, but that middle section of the importance of that pathway gets overlooked. And so if you are trying to become educated or trying to teach and explain and understand the differeces, and people start making why brand A versus brand B, all that is happening in that consideration, super important. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. And so as marketers, and whether it's Hispanics or not that we're targeting, we got to spend more time making your brand relevant, not just that people understand your brand, but making them relevant to consider the following steps. So I think it's a great question, because I think that's where a lot of marketers are missing the mark.
Thanks, guys. Let's give a round of applause to this panel out there.